My 24-year-old partner, 31-year-old, was on a reality television show. She cheated on me. Now the show is airing and I am not coping. I have been with my partner for almost 3 years. It is my first big relationship, and for the most part, it has been a very good one. For some backstory, we did have one big bust-up in the first year where we separated for a while. In the time that we were apart, she sought counseling for her anger issues. We got back together and everything has been much better since then. So there's a reality show that basically became a comfort show for my partner, and I grew to really like it too. To cut a long story short, she became determined to go on, which I was super excited about. Not something I would ever be brave enough to do, but I was crazy excited about watching it together. I never actually believed it would happen, neither did she, but shockingly, she got on the show. We were both screaming with excitement when they told us. I'm going to skip all the before stuff because this is becoming way too long. Sorry. So when it was all over and she was back in Australia, she was gone for 2 months. I was overjoyed to have her back. Couldn't wait to hear all the stories, thought she'd be so excited, happy, etc. Instead, she was distant, she cried easily. At first, I thought it was just the adjustment period, or going from such an adrenaline rush to being back to the grind. Then she told me, she cheated on me while she was away. As she was telling me she was crying, begging for forgiveness, told me it was such a pressure cooker, that she was so lonely and she just did it. She said that she'd spoken to the producers and they assured her that nothing was on camera, nothing would be brought up about it. She said that they were extremely private about it and that our family and friends would never know, because I said she'd humiliated me in front of my family. Again, cutting a long story short, I left for weeks, but we eventually patched it up. My reason for forgiving her, one of the reasons at least, was that the aftercare team of the show reached out and said that the island really is a high-pressure situation, like my partner had said, and that it's not the first time it's happened with a contestant. My partner was also full of apologies and agreed to go to couples counseling. So things gradually started to return to normal. We started getting closer again. The problem? The show started airing just over a month ago, and obviously we're having watch parties with our friends and family, and it's just tearing me apart more and more each week watching it together with everyone so excited for my partner. She's right that nothing has been directly shown so far, but the closeness my partner has with the other contestant is just soul-destroying. She almost follows her around like a puppy, and that's just in the small edited chunks we see. Another thing is just how different this woman is to me. She's a sports person, completely different in personality and looks to me, and seeing my partner just so clearly infatuated with her is crippling. I just feel so sad, so angry, and yet I don't want to ruin my partner's big moment with all our family and friends. Like, the last thing I want to be doing is watching this each week. But I know if I say anything the relationship is over, and I really am trying so hard to forgive and forget. And my partner has been trying to move on and make it up to me. I'm just struggling. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be okay with watching this, but I also don't want to take this once-in-a-lifetime thing from her and taint it. If I'm being really honest, I'd also be so embarrassed if my family and friends found out, as there've already been issues in the past. I'd just love some advice on how to cope or deal with this. Making you sit there and watch it just so that people don't ask questions shows a lack of remorse. She's far more concerned about how this would affect her than she is about how it's affecting you. She says sorry and apologizes to you because that benefits her, not for your sake. If she was truly sorry, she wouldn't be putting you through the hell you're in right now. That show is always going to be out there. I think it's nice that the aftercare person reached out to you, but the reality is actions have consequences. Cheating, it's cheating, even if you think you have a good reason for having done it. For it to be shoved in your face through a TV program you're made to watch is only going to reinforce the fact she made a choice. Not only to cheat, but to put herself on the show in the first place. Would I be the asshole if I decided I was done with all of the family drama and we went on our own vacation? My husband, 24, has multiple siblings between the ages of 8 and 27. The only one that matters here is the oldest brother, 27, and his wife, 24. They have always seemed a little more concerned with themselves and getting what they want, but what has happened recently has been quite the surprise. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are very genuine and caring people, to a fault. Also, for context, I am 16 weeks pregnant and the only other person that is married into the family. 2 months ago, father-in-law proposed an idea where we work together on a project and use the funds we make to pay for a family cruise. Everyone happily agreed to work. When we started planning, brother-in-law and his wife were trying their hardest to not go on a cruise. I'm honestly not sure why, as their reasonings were inconsistent and don't make any sense to me, my husband, or his parents. So then, without being asked, brother-in-law and sister-in-law proposed 4 other ideas of places to go in an elaborate PowerPoint with highlights of activities in the areas. The problem is that I couldn't participate in 90% of the activities while pregnant. They included things like roller coasters, long hikes, and surfboarding. Not to mention the proposed plan to go skiing and ice skating, which I could not participate in at all. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law acknowledged I wouldn't be able to do almost anything on the other trips in a text after sending the PowerPoint, but did not care. After all of that, my father-in-law said he still chose the cruise for many reasons, including that he knew my mother-in-law would be guilted and made to babysit brother-in-law and sister-in-law's 2 young kids while they went and had fun on their own. More recently, brother-in-law and sister-in-law have said they point blank will not go on a cruise, even though they had been begrudgingly planning on it after their ideas were turned down. They have also threatened my father-in-law to just take their portion of the money from our work and go on their own vacation. When father-in-law said they could go ahead and do that, brother-in-law backtracked and said he didn't actually want to, but he also reiterated that he did not want to and was not going to go on a cruise. So now, mother-in-law and father-in-law are trying to bend over backward to accommodate brother-in-law and sister-in-law's selfishness and are trying to plan a second vacation that father-in-law would fully fund. The second vacation would be at a resort with a lake because sister-in-law likes lakes. My husband and I would not be going since I'd be 32 weeks pregnant by then. I'm incredibly frustrated by all of this. I am especially frustrated by brother-in-law and sister-in-law being so selfish and so entitled that they feel the need to bully my mother-in-law and father-in-law into doing something they don't really want to do. My husband understands my frustration, but is trying to be more impartial and help his parents work things out. I really don't think I am in the wrong here for feeling infuriated, but all of my in-laws' reactions are causing me to question myself. Would we be the antagonists if my husband and I decided we were done with all of the drama and took our portion to go on our own vacation? Sounds like the cruise is still happening without brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and the second vacation won't even include you and your husband due to the timing of your due date. It might be best to go on the cruise and happily welcome your new child at home, while the troublemakers go on their lake vacation. Your brother-in-law and sister-in-law are being ass, but you don't have to listen to them at all. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face and mimic their behavior. Go on the cruise as planned and enjoy it. Your brother-in-law and sister-in-law have shown their true colors, so use that as guidance for the future. Ultimately, it seems like everyone should do what they want and let the others do the same. My girlfriend wants me to leave my amazing job for a position that pays more. I am a 26-year-old male and she is a 26-year-old female. We have been together for 6 years. We are pretty happy, but as we get older, we are having more serious conversations about the future before we commit long-term. I come from a lower middle-class family. Her family is millionaires. In college, we were long distance. I worked hard. I paid for my rent and tuition. I took 7 classes a semester and worked 2 jobs. 40 hours a week. Her parents paid for her to go to a good school, but she mostly just smoked weed every day. I did this to pay my bills but also to pay for our vacations. About half my annual income went to flights and vacations so that we could see each other. She didn't want to ask her parents for money because they were already paying for so much. Now, she has always been clear about her expectations for us. She said she was with me because she loved me and was frank with me that if she was in it for my money, she would be with someone else. I believe it because when we first met, I was broke and had nothing to offer. Well, fast forward to after college. We both have great jobs working remotely. I am in tech sales and make about $85,000. She is making roughly the same amount. I have been in my current job for about 4 years. It was my first job out of college. And honestly, I love it. I work about 10 hours a week and I hit all my numbers. My coworkers and managers are amazing. I have grown so much professionally because they train us so well. I love life for the first time in a while. If you don't know a lot about sales, it is a very tough job market right now. Even if you are lucky enough to get hired, it is very possible you will get laid off quickly. In the tech sales world, 4 years at a company is a serious accomplishment. If you don't hit your numbers or the company is struggling, then you're gone. Typically, it is true that switching jobs is the best way to increase your salary, but in sales, it actually looks really good on your resume if you've stayed at a company for a while. My girlfriend says I need a different job because I am not motivated or challenged enough and that I should have higher salary goals and higher career ambitions. She's putting her money where her mouth is because she wants to make $100K bad. She really wants those promotions. She works 50 hours a week and is always thinking about work, so it doesn't seem worth it to me. I know there will be a time where I need to step it up, but why not just enjoy the job I have now until I inevitably get fired? I'm lucky to have a job right now anyway. No amount of pay can replace work-life balance. I think I would regret it if I moved on. I think I could be working harder to get better promotions and kissing more butt at work, but I'll just do that at my next job. How do we proceed from here? If you are happy in your current position, that's what matters most. Success isn't always about money or job titles. It sounds like your job is a good fit for someone wanting a secondary income or a stay-at-home dad role. If it would be difficult to get back into this field, I wouldn't recommend leaving. If your partner is already working long hours and wants you to do the same, it could impact the quality of your time together. Stay at the job you love. Millions would love to be in your shoes. Before making any decisions, consider if your partner's pushing is because she doesn't like who you are at this job, or if she simply wants you to match her ambition. Am I the asshole for uninviting my father to my graduation ceremony because of what he said about my mother? My parents do not get along. They divorced when I was still in the womb, and my dad married the woman he is still with now and had 5 more children, my half-siblings. He wasn't in my life for 22 years, I am 23 now for reference, and we only just began to build a quasi-relationship last year, when one of my siblings did a DNA test, matching with me on the site and thus proving that we are, in fact, related. He had apparently always insisted that my mom was a liar, that I wasn't his kid, that my mom had tried to baby trap him, and that all of his efforts to get me to Netestijuto spent time with me blocked by her. I've accepted that I'll never truly know the full true story because both of my parents have different versions, but it is what it is. All of that aside, I'm 23 years old, and graduating at university soon, master's degree. Obviously, my mom is first on the list when it comes to who is coming. She is my life and soul. She raised me on her own and went above and beyond for me. There's no way she isn't attending on such a major day for me. I also thought that, since I am now getting to know my dad, it would be nice for him to share this moment too, along with my siblings as well. So I brought it up during dinner a few nights ago, and while my siblings expressed interest in attending, my dad's first reaction was to say, verbatim, "Oof, your mother will be there, won't she?" in a tone that really rubbed me the wrong way. I said yeah, she will be, but later on I confronted him properly. I asked him what he meant by what he said earlier, and he told me that he can't be anywhere that my mom is because his wife will get jealous and insecure, and that she gets physically sick when she's jealous, and he doesn't want to put her in harm's way. So I said something along the lines of, well, my mom is definitely and rightfully going to be there because she's my mom, and it's a very important day for me. If that's such a big problem for you, please don't come at all. Some of the people I've spoken to in my family have said that I was harsh and didn't hear him out fully, that he never said he didn't want to come, and that I probably don't know the full story. That he's my dad and he didn't get to be there for many important milestones, so it's really quite cruel of me to tell him not to come to this one. I'm always being told that I'm missing a lot of context when it comes to my parents' full story, and yet no one wants to tell me that context. My aunt suggested I compromise and just find a way to make sure my mom and dad's paths don't cross on the day, but I don't want to have to do that. I refuse to walk on eggshells on a day that's supposed to be happy for me, to borderline babysit my dad just to make sure he doesn't run into my mother and subsequently make his wife jealous. That's not my problem. Am I the asshole? Your dad ran away from important milestones, abandoned you, denied your existence, talked poorly about your mom, and prioritized his new wife over you. You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells to make other people happy on your special day. Your dad's wife needs therapy to work through her jealousy. Enjoy your graduation and congratulations on your master's. I, 22-year-old male, didn't go to my girlfriend's, 21-year-old female, house because I had duty the next day and things took a turn for the worse. What do I need to do? I, 22-year-old male military man here. My girlfriend, 21-year-old female, whom we'll call L, and I have been dating for 7 months. I was away for 3 months due to a surprise deployment. Despite some fights during my absence, I believed we had come out of it stronger. Apparently I was wrong. After coming home, we exchanged Valentine's Day gifts. Obviously, I wanted to see her immediately and her likewise, so I didn't have time to wrap any of my things. Amazon. The first was a puzzle piece jewelry holder that inside contained a silver locket with a working compass inside. I knew she liked gold, but I thought she'd really like what I got her. When Elle opened the box, she looked at me in a way that told me she was disappointed, but told me she liked it to save my feelings. It was horrible, and I really thought I had a good idea with this one. I'm not very romantic, but I tried. Elle would later say that she had been watching TikTok trends on how boyfriends aren't noticing if their girlfriend is a silver or gold girl, and that means I don't care. After a few days, I spent the night at her house. I thought it was great. We just relaxed and were lazy like nobody's business, watched a bad horror movie about killer donuts, and then did the other things a normal couple typically does after prolonged separation. In the morning, I had to leave at 5:30 for work, and the rest of the day, I just wanted to relax. I'd have duty the following day, which meant I'd have to wake up at 5 a.m. and go into work all day. I started winding down, drank a couple of beers, and was getting ready for bed when I got a text from Elle asking if I wanted to come over. Had it been any other day, I would have been there. On this particular day, though, I was tired, had drunk enough to be considered intoxicated, and didn't want to drive 30 minutes to go to sleep in an hour, which wouldn't have happened anyway. When I told Elle this, the floodgates opened. Obviously, I put it nicer and not so factual as I did here. I offered to reschedule to Saturday too, but she wouldn't have it, saying that I don't care about her and how she had been thinking about this for months. Val said I don't even know what she likes, which for the sake of character limit I won't list here, but feel free to ask me below. I just don't get exactly where she's coming from. I want her to understand, but it was incredibly hurtful to be told these things when I really thought we were in such a good place. Additionally, she used to get so mad at me about not speaking when we were having an argument. I'd kind of just shut down and only say a few words at a time. Elle told me to stop doing this, but now when I speak my mind on the matter, she gets even more angry. I can be honest and say I don't have the best memory at times. Sometimes I'll have the same conversation multiple times, and she talked about this too, but it doesn't mean I just don't know anything about her, which is a big hitter for her. She likes Lana Del Rey, favorite album is Ultraviolence, baking, really good at it as well, art, specifically monets. Her job, even though it has insane hours sometimes. Antique muscle cars, motorcycles, more bands than I can count because we both like a lot of the same music. I just don't know what I need to do here. Any advice is appreciated. It's clear that she is not mature enough to handle the challenges of a military relationship. If she can't handle you being an hour away and is picking fights while you're deployed, she is not the kind of person who will endure military life. You need someone more patient and independent. She ain't it. How do I convince my autistic relative I am not the bad guy, just the individual that delivers bad news? Last year, my grandmother, Jessica, died. To my surprise, she named me the executor of her will. My grandmother spent her entire life making empty promises, so the contents of her will were very shocking. My autistic cousin, Dan, has been especially upset. In the weeks leading up to her death, Dan was very persistent to find out what Jessica was leaving him in her will. Dan grew up with his parents financially dependent on Jessica. When his parents died, he became financially dependent on Jessica. Jessica placed him in one of her rental units, rental-free, prepaid his utilities, and provided him an allowance for groceries, phone, cable, etc. Apparently, Jessica spun a story about him inheriting an enormous share of her estate. In his mind, whatever verbal promises she made to him were absolute. Even with her track record of empty promises, she also was showing signs of mental decline, calling out for dead relatives, losing her train of thought, struggling to remember words people. The couple times Dan bragged to me about his supposed inheritance, I would caution him to curb his expectations. Dan and I were never close growing up. Our families only interacted maybe once a year for holidays, but we were cordial. Since I was named the executor, I had to break the news to Dan. Dan insisted I was wrong, that I should honor Jessica's last wishes and disregard the will. I showed Dan the will, explained how wills work and the legal process, and pointed out what my grandmother left him instead. I also explained I would not be able to provide him an allowance any longer. Since then, Dan's blocked me on social media, lawyered up, though nothing ever went to court and we're past the point of contesting, and told our remaining family members I sabotaged the will. Unfortunately, there's no one left alive to reign in my cousin. The few relatives who were left out of the will sided with Dan. The beneficiaries of the will are my siblings and an aunt with dementia. My siblings don't like Dan, especially after he's attacked me, and my aunt, and I wouldn't get my aunt or her guardian involved in this drama. I have one relative not named in the will who sympathizes with me but wants to remain neutral, so I have no one who can mediate. This leads to the more bad news. One of my siblings inherited the rental property Dan is currently living in, and they want me to sell it on their behalf. The estate attorney I'm working with is going to draft up an official notice to quit, but I feel guilty dropping this bomb on my cousin. I had been hoping some of Dan's misplaced anger was out of grief, and he would calm down with time. But the neutral relatives bumped into Dan last week and says he's still as upset as ever. I don't like being the bad guy. How do you successfully argue with an autistic person? How do you reconcile with an upset autistic person? I understand they can be egocentric and have a hard time understanding nuances. It seems like Dan is in a difficult situation and may need more social resources and assistance in managing his life. As the executor, keeping detailed notes and documentation is important in this situation. While it may be a challenge since you and Dan were never close growing up, finding resources for him should be a priority. It's also worth considering what Dan has inherited and if there are any legal issues that need to be addressed. Let your sibling handle the rental property situation on their own, as they have their own resources and can work with the estate attorney. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.